Good morning and welcome to Funky Rainbow this bright Saturday morning. Well, at least it stopped raining for a bit in Bangalore, and I do love the fact that Divya Menon and Avyukt and Amey and I are saying happy morning to everybody. It's a bright and sunny morning after a long time. Indeed, it is. Arunji, how wonderful to see you here this morning. We absolutely thought of you the minute we thought of this theme, and we also thought of your bank balancer, but don't blame us. We just have these lovely themes to present. I can see that you're saying that I really enjoyed reading the book Spaceship to the Universe. Avyukt, if you're watching, that's your recommendation that Arunji is talking about. How lovely to see all of you, our friends on Instagram and on Facebook. Thank you for joining us at this Buzzaar on birds. Preeti Ramchandran, very, very good morning to you. Please send some sun our way. It's just opened up. The skies have just opened up and some sunshine streaming through. I never thought somebody in Madras would actually ask for sunshine, but I do hope it's not raining torrentially. And Sham saying that he can make it snow even when it's sunny, and there you can see some snow right up on our screen. But ask him to send you some sunshine, Preeti Ramchandran, for you and Guhan. How lovely to see some of our favorite friends at a very special bazaar this morning. It is themed on birds, and this is to celebrate Dr. Salim Ali's 125th birth anniversary that went past on the 12th of November. So he was born on 12th November 1896. And, we really felt that there are so many lovely books to showcase on the theme of birds. And, what better occasion than someone who, is a pioneer in identifying Indian birds and documenting them, the Birdman of India, Dr. Salim Ali. We thought we'd use his birthday as a peg to showcase our children's books on birds. Arun is saying, universe is conspiring. I was thinking of Dr. Salim Ali yesterday and about Taraji's new book. You are absolutely abreast of everything, Arun. I think, please do visit us here at Funky Rainbow. And, we're going to have a lot of things to learn from you. Indeed, our guest today, Tara Gandhi, was Dr. Salim Ali's student. He was her field guide when she was doing her master's in zoology and specializing in field ornithology. And I thought, my God, who better than a student of Dr. Salim Ali to have at the bazaar to speak to us about the passion that Dr. Salim Ali had for nature, for birds, and how he, passed it on to the younger generations. And of course, like Arun says, her wonderful book for adults has just come out of from Hachette India, maybe just 2 or 3 days ago. We've ordered it at Funky Rainbow, and I'm sure she'll talk about it in the course of her conversation. Words for Birds is what it's called, and you have to hear Tara Gandhi, our guest who will join us later in the show at 12:30, talk about this wonderful book. Yeah, coincidence, and you're bringing her to this session, you say. Yes, of course. Sometimes I think these thoughts, they get transmitted across the air, or maybe there's just a little bird that told us that that's exactly what you want to see, Arunji. So there we are, presenting a bazaar on birds to commemorate Dr. Salim Ali's 125th birth anniversary. And we have the wonderful conservationist and ornithologist, Dr. Tara Gandhi, joining us as the guest on our show later. For our friends on Instagram, I know I say this out every week. We can live stream the show on Instagram, but we're not able to put the guest conversation up on Instagram. And so when there's the time to, talk with our guest, interview the guest of the day, which is at 12:30 today, do try to log in to our Facebook channel or YouTube page to see that wonderful conversation happen. We would love it if you could transition to the other two channels, any one of the channels, Facebook or YouTube, to catch the conversation with the guest. Rupa Baliga saying, good morning. This one is special for me. In my past life, that's before N was born, bird watching was a serious hobby for me and my husband. How utterly delighted I am to hear that. And Guhan saying, Auntie, I'm excited about today's topic. I loved Salim Mamu and Me. Yes, of course, the author of Salim Mamu and Me. She's the one, Zai Whitaker, such an inspiring nature lover and conservationist herself, who introduced us to Tara Gandhi and, helped us bring her on the show. Arun saying, in my wish list during the next visit to Bangalore is FR. Hope to do it before the next year bells ring in. We really look forward to that visit, sir. Come to spend a couple of hours at Funky Rainbow. And this invitation out to all of you, all our friends who watch at the Buzzaar, do visit us at Funky Rainbow, and don't come with just 30 minutes to spare. Come with half a day at least and sit down and enjoy the books and the conversation with all of us at Team Funky Rainbow. Rupa saying, earlier today morning, I was watching a wagtail, I think a gray wagtail, which has probably just migrated down here with my son. And we got your message about today's theme being birds. I tell you, many little birds sending us the messages out over here. And that's why this theme resonating with so many of you. Just what you told me, Rupa, makes me think of, I've always just had my nose in books. But, there's just something special about birds and bird watching, and I can't claim to be able to identify that many of them. But, it was my dad, a hardcore engineer, science man at heart, who, when we were children, my brother and I, always pointed us to the birds that would come visiting just in our backyard. And I would always wonder, I mean, here's a man who who had his nose entirely in metals, in science, in energy, in in clean sources of energy, and and metallurgy, basically. How did he always spot those birds? And today I remember him with so much fondness, because teaching us to look at the birds just in our backyard. And we lived in a place, there was a little lake close by, where he'd always take us for walks to spot maybe a kingfisher, maybe a wagtail, maybe a myna, maybe a Brahmini kite. And I just think, my God, I'm really thankful that he actually opened our eyes to the beauty of birds, that come visiting just in our backyard. We didn't need to go to Bharatpur, or we didn't need to go to Kuldeo Ghana, to the Kuldeo Sanctuary, but we could see many, many birds. And I was delighted to see that many years after as well, for my nieces and nephews, he would do exactly the same thing. In fact, the wonderful children's writer Ranjit Lal, and keen birder who's done such excellent books on birds, Ranjit Lal, had come visiting once, and I was, he had come home to have dinner once, and I was just wondering what conversation would ensue between my parents and Ranjit Lal. And I was just so stumped at how many bird calls, my dad asked Ranjit to identify. So there, what you said, Rupa, it just brought back such wonderful memories of my late father, and learning to look, to stop and smell the roses, but also look up and watch the birds. And I can see Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj saying, "Thank you, Funky Rainbow, for your beautiful bird theme this morning. Rain or sun, you bring us so much of Saturday fun. Maybe you'll bring us some sunshine today. It's already sunny here in JP Nagar in Bangalore, Vijay, and we're sending some sunshine and smiles your way." Rupa saying, "Absolutely, with their bird watching opened up so many new things for me too. Took us to places we never imagined we would go. Taught us to watch out for sights and sounds around us. The sounds, especially, we used to so many times ignore before bird watching." And Arun saying, "Your words reminding me of my trip to Rankandittu." Yes, of course, and my time during the Sahyadri range, amazing days that I miss. I can well imagine being in the Sahyadri school and looking at birds in and around you. Vijay Lakshmi, of course, saying, "Bird watching in Shillong and Palakkad was my favorite childhood pastime." We are delighted. We are just so delighted that the theme is connected so closely with so many of you. And with that, let's begin, introducing some books to you. We hope you'll, enjoy the books that we're presenting. We hope they'll help your imagination take flight. As always, we have far more books than we can recommend. So do check our website, www.funkyrainbow.com. Click on the tab that says Book Buzzaar. Then click on the tab that says Season 3. And one of the links will be birds. Many, many books on birds up there in our collection. If you feel you enjoyed some of them, do consider picking them up from Funky Rainbow. I'm going to start off my recommendations this morning with 3 lovely little board books. I mean, there's just something so sweet about bird books, really. And I'm going to begin with one of my favorite ones called Cheep Cheep. And of course, why we have Cheep Cheep in the Bird Bazaar. This one's illustrated. It's a little rhyme. It's a board book that would work for newborn children. And it has illustrations by Soumya Menon. And I just love the fact that this book, about, different sounds, about how the sparrow says cheep, cheep, and how the water drips teep, teep. I love those sounds that Indians are so so familiar with. It doesn't matter how you describe them. The onomatopoeia of those sounds is just so charming. Crow says kaka, of course, singing loudly sa re ga. My God, like imagine the immense potential that you have with a little book like this, and the sounds, and how you can engage with absolutely a young child with this marvelous board book published by Tulika. It's actually a rhyme adapted from Gujarati, and has all sorts of interesting sounds in its pages. This one priced at 325 rupees, published by Tulika, meant for newborns. Another Cheep Cheep, but this time an international book, and again a beautiful little board book, a slide and seek board book, written and illustrated by Sophie Ledesma. And again, you can contrast the sounds. This is cock-a-doodle cheep. Who wants to play? And you know what? When you slide the flap up, you will see who wants to play. These lovely slide and seek books, just so so wonderful for our youngest readers. Dig, dig, cheep. Look at all those yummy vegetables. And who wants to, who is tucked away amidst those vegetables? See, you lift and pull the flap, and there you can see little chick hiding away amidst all those vegetables. So it's about a little chick who goes exploring, and the flaps and the slides and the tabs, they really tell you what's happening in the farm where little chick is. And this one, the third board book that I wanted to recommend, and I just loved it. It just came onto our shelves. Like I said, sometimes the universe just conspires to bring these wonderful books into your collection just in time for a bazaar. This one's called 10 on a Twig, written and illustrated by Lokol. And look at that, look at the way the book begins. There is, a little rhyme, which is 10 on a twig, just passing time. Snap, one falls off, and then there are nine. So you know, and look at the way the pages are done, how gorgeously designed this book is. Like a tiny little one for 10, and then you move, and then you come to nine, and then you move and you go on to eight. This is so lovely. The birds are so colorful. The book is so interactive, and it's a perfect pick for playtime or bedtime with the youngest readers. These two board books, international ones, one published by Little Tiger and one published by Source Books, priced at 450 and 550, but available. Our international books are available at fabulous discounts, the best discounts that an independent store can certainly give you. Do check out our site if any of these interest you. Our next recommendation this morning is a beautiful folk tale that comes to us all the way from Rajasthan. Eyes on a Peacock's Tail, part of Tulika's Under the Banyan series. And this one, written by Vayu Naidu and illustrated by Mugdha Shah, is such a charming story. And look at those beginning and end papers filled with peacocks. It's a charming story about how the peacock never had eyes, never had markings on its tail. The tail was a shimmering blue-green tail. But how did the peacock eventually, and you can see this illustration of the peacock without any markings or eyes on its tail. Now, it's a charming folk tale that comes all the way from Rajasthan that tells you how the peacock's tail got decorated with its beautiful eyes. It's set right in a jungle in the middle of many, many animals, and therein lies a beautiful story of friendship and as folk tales are, charming stories of how certain creatures got their physical traits, or sometimes even calls and personality traits. This is, of course, we know that the peacock is a proud person. In the story, the peacock is very proud, and we do know often the saying that goes, as proud as a peacock. Now, what happens? How does that pride how does that pride help him get eyes on his tail? It's a lovely book that we'd recommend for 4+-year-olds, priced at 95 rupees. Our next set of books are two, lovely little books from Pratham. And the reason we have chosen to talk about the two of them together is because there's like a brave heroine and a brave hero in both these books. So the first one there, Nayana and the Not So Scary Owl, by Anita Vajrajani and illustrated by Shilpa Ranade, is about this little girl called Nayana. And you can see her swinging and playing and having loads of fun. She's 3 years old. She loves all birds. She loves to spot birds in and around her house. But she's just scared of one bird, and that bird is the owl. Then one day what happens is that Nayana actually looks up and sees like an owl sitting on a tree with its big, round and sweet eyes. And she's scared for a moment, but she also says that there's got to be a way not to be scared of this owl. Now, what happens? Why does she feel that? Why does she feel that she has to be not so scared about this owl? Because the owl is in big trouble by itself. And what does Nayana do? She rises to the occasion, or rather, flies up to the occasion and, becomes an action-packed heroine who saves the owl. I'm not going to say anything more, but it's just a lovely book about a little girl flying free of her fears. This one, published by Pratham, priced at 40 rupees. We would recommend it for children 4+, 5+ years in age. The other book that goes with this one, and we chose to pair the two of them, is Amu and the Sparrows, written by Vinita and illustrated by Jayesh Sivan. It has won the Neve Book Award. It won the Neve Book Award just recently for Best Picture Book. And it's such a beautiful story about a little boy called Ammu who spends his days with his amama. That's his grandmother. Now, amamas have this lovely thing, and you can see these lovely, sort of sepia tinted illustrations of little Ammu, and feeding, how his amama feeds the birds. Now, every time Amama feeds the birds, Amu is waiting. I mean, he sees the little birds up there, and he sees like a little baby, sparrow, and he is wondering whether that bird's Amma and Acha, where are that bird's Amma and Appa? Now he waits every day patiently to see if that little baby birds Amma and Appa, or Amma and Acha sparrows, will visit this little one. Do they come? You've got to read the book to find out. And what does that reflect of Ammu's life as well? What a multi-layered story, what a beautifully poignant story it is. Ammu and the Sparrows, written by Vinita and Jayesh Sivan. And what a brave little boy Ammu is, in a very different way from what Nayana was. I mean, while she is an action-packed heroine on one count, he is dealing with some inner demons. He is battling some inner demons, and the story so beautifully metaphorical, and multiple meanings revealing itself on a reading just from a simple picture book. This one priced at 50 rupees. We'd recommend, this one for 5+ year olds. But like I've always maintained, these age groups are simply just age groups that we prescribe. You are better judges of, whether your children, will enjoy these books or not. Our next recommendation this morning is again a wonderful, wonderful favorite book at Funky Rainbow, and many, many copies of it have flown off our shelves. This one is called The Jungle Radio by Devangana Dash. And The Jungle Radio, I love the title. I love the way the book's cover. It's the bird songs of India. Because when you open the pages of the book, you get into listening to a sweet jungle orchestra, from the woodpecker's drums to the hornbill's trumpet to the kingfisher's blues. It is such a fabulously illustrated book, written in rhyme, introducing you to different Indian birds. I mean, you can see the story begins with a little gull who's, hearing some strange sounds coming from her radio. And, she follows, she sort of walks into an Indian jungle with the radio, only to discover all kinds of wondrous sounds coming from from the jungle as well. And like Rupa Baliga said, when we pay attention, we just hear so many beautiful bird sounds, right around us, irrespective of whether you're in a jungle or not. I've just got to show you some of the stunning illustrations in the book. It's really about the songs and sounds of the birds, and a great call to ask everyone, especially young children, to come and listen to the world around us. I mean, I really feel that these sounds must resonate through this book and through looking at birds outside your window in every house, in every school, in every home library, and in every school library as well. So wonderful to see you here this morning, Apurva Ashok. Good morning. And we are delighted to see another wonderful traveler on this journey of books and reading, Apurva Ashok joining us. And yes, you're right. The Jungle Radio is so gorgeous. You can just keep looking at the pages over and over again. And I love the way the sounds are presented on the pages. I mean, the kind of sounds that will roll off Indian tongues so easily that this is really a special and wonderful book in every way. This one published by Penguin, priced at 250 rupees, also introduces you to different Indian birds. I mean, we'd recommend it. I mean, if your child is interested in birds when she is 4, please show her the book. If she's interested in when she's 7, please show her the book. Or even if they're interested when they are 12 years old, it's a great book to dip into. This one priced at 250 rupees and published by Penguin Random House India. Our next book, and it is, of course, I can see Guhan saying, I love the pictures and I learnt a lot of bird calls from the Jungle Radio. Never knew that there was a bird called fairy thrush or hawk cuckoo. See that? You get that right out of a child's mouth, Apurva. So you know why that book is special, why the book is special, and why it needs to be on every bookshelf. Absolutely, Gohan. Me too. I discovered so many beautiful birds through this book. And I have, our office has a lot of trees outside, actually. And we can always, when we don't talk, and when we keep quiet, which is very rare, we can actually hear many beautiful bird calls out of our office. And I always wonder when we may come across one of these birds, which I haven't seen either. For instance, the fairy thrush. I'm not sure that the bird visits here, but there was that learning about the fairy thrush, for all of us at Team Funky Rainbow as well. For all of you watching, we're doing this Buzzaar because it is Dr. Salim Ali's 125th birth anniversary. He was born on the 12th of November, 1896, and he went on to become the Birdman of India. I mean, the first, person who really, looked around, eyes wide open, traveled here, there, everywhere, within the country and outside of the country, to document Indian birds. I mean, today when we go bird watching, we can actually pick up a book and take it and go and, look to see what the characters are, what the features are, who did all that work for the first time, who identified the hundreds of species of birds that exist in the country, thousands of species of birds that exist in our country. That credit goes to the wonderful Birdman of India, Dr. Salim Ali. And, what fabulous inheritance, we have, via his work. When I was much younger, he had an autobiography called The Fall of the Sparrow. And, where he talks about his life, he talks about, his adventures in birding. And I know Oxford University Press brought out a lovely illustrated version for children called The Fall of the Sparrow for Children, or an illustrated version for children. We have searched high and low for that book now, but we can't seem to find it. If you can access it, or if we can access it, it's a lovely book for young readers because it gives you a great idea of Salim Ali's life. And, when he started to bird watch, I mean, I'm not sure there was that many people even doing it in India. What it took to be a trailblazer. I'm sure a lot of people thought he was absolutely crazy for, taking a pair of binoculars and a notebook and a pencil and running here, there, everywhere. But that is such a lovely book that resonates with his love for the natural world. But the book that we wanted to introduce and that we have in Funky Rainbow's collection, also one that Guhan referred to right at the beginning of the bazaar, Zai Whittaker's incredible Salim Mamu and Me, illustrated by Prabha Malya. What a beautiful book this is about. Zai is the grandniece of Salim Ali, and she talks so fondly of her uncle Salim Mamu, as she calls him. And this is all about being in a family, where there are so many famous people, especially the most famous of them being the Birdman of India, Salim Ali. I know, and it's lovely the way she begins the book saying that all of us say Salim Ali. That's not what he is. He's Sah, if you'd say, Salim Ali. And that's how the protagonist of the book, who's little Zai herself, begins telling her story. And she's like, my parents, they were birding experts. My uncles, the Birdman of India, my elder brother and sister, they could identify everything that they saw around them. What about young me? I couldn't even identify a pipit sitting right under my nose. And what a, and thereon begins her recollections of her wonderful uncle Salim. And is she intimidated by him? Of course. Imagine if you looked out of the window and somebody could say, oh well, that's a wagtail thrush, oh well, that's this thing, that's like a monal, that is this kind of sparrow, this is this kind of bulbul. What would happen? You would simply be quite taken aback. And that Zai's humor just sparkles through the book, because she's like, even before I could spot where the bird was sitting, people have already identified it and classified it. What happens to a little child, and this one all about her early birding woes and how she often, let's say, winged it. When people asked her to guess what that bird was, she literally just winged it. And what happens? How did she then go on to overcome those, that pressure? And that pressure was not put upon her either by Salim Ali, her uncle, or by any of her family members. It is just her feeling quite intimidated by the fact that she was in a family of such prestigious birders, the most significant of them being the Birdman of India, Salim Ali, who is her Mamu. It's such a charming book. Adults, you will enjoy it thoroughly. Children will absolutely be chuckling in laughter. And beautiful, little anecdotes about Salim Ali, where she talks about, how good a bird watcher he was, but what a rotten driver he really was. And, a little bit about the Bombay Natural History Society in a simple picture book. There's a great deal of delight, there's a great deal of humor, and there's a great deal of meaning in a simple picture book by Zai Whittaker and charmingly illustrated by Prabha Malya. Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, good morning, Rainbow. Lovely to be here. What a fabulous session this is going to be. Respected Salim Ali, sir. Indeed, another big nature lover. You are, Sunila Kulkarni. And I can well just imagine you feeding the birds that come to your little balcony full of plants every morning, plants and flowers every morning. David Williams, how lovely to see you here this morning. You say, I was wondering why I couldn't call to mind the sound of bird calls in your courtyard, despite all the time I spent there. As you say, the chirping of the people inside seldom stopped. Yes, I'm afraid chatterboxes are plenty at Funky Rainbow, but you could have just shushed us up and gone out and listened to those bird calls and made us identify some of those birds as well. Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj saying, such a lovely book, Salim Mamu and Me. Piyush Seksaria, welcome. We're so honored that you're here at this bazaar. You're saying it's such a lovely session. Thank you so much, Funky Rainbow. Thank you, for doing the magnificent work that you do. Many of your fans watching us this morning, Rupa Rupa Baliga is there, Apurva Ashok's there. They're all huge fans of your book. We have to thank all you conservationists who, really open our eyes to the beauty of the natural world around us. Thank you so much for doing what you do, Piyush Seksaria, and we're utterly delighted that you're here at the Buzzaar this morning. But this book on Salim Mamu, please make sure, if you don't have it, that you have not one copy, but at least 2 copies of the book yourself. I'm going to just say a quick round of hellos to many friends who've joined us on Instagram and on Facebook. Let me just say hello to so many of you who've joined us, who've, let's say, flocked together to be at our Buzzaar this Saturday morning. We are always thankful for the incredible support that we get from our audiences. And the only reason that we've been doing this non-stop for 1.5 years now, and we're a small team, we're just a team of 5 people, getting all the books, putting them up online, getting all the tech done for the Buzzaar. It takes an entire week sometimes to get things ready for a Buzzaar, focusing on the guests. We continue to do it because of the unstinting support that we have got from every one of you watching the Buzzaars every week. So hello to Resh Nathani, Swaep, Sachuvas, Nanish, Yellara Pustaka, so delighted to see you, Champa Books, Preeti Bookban, Children's Books, Sharat Sangeeta, Ritz, Debbie Abi, Poonam, Shama Doshi, Anjani Rajagopal, Seema Sajit, Arya Hints, Suvidha Mistry, so happy to see you here this morning. Raw Arun, Divya Menon, Preeti Ramchandran, Avyukta Nameya Nair, Rupa Baliga, Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj, Apurva Ashok, Sunila Kulkarni Gupte, David Williams. What a pleasure to see all of you here this morning. I will continue with a clutch of more recommendations, for on the theme of birds. I think I missed out one of the books. Okay, sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for pointing it out to me, Sham. There was this beautiful book in Hindi that I absolutely wanted to point out to you, and I think in picking out the books in my order, I just clean forgot about this one. But it's such a beautiful book from Ekalavya. I meant to put it up right up in the Buzzaar. This one called Soja Ullu by Bhuri Bai, the tribal artist Bhuri Bai, who's made the illustrations in this fantastic book. Just look at the pages. And, what is the story about? Well, in Hindi, Ullu sone ki koshish kar raha tha, lekin har baar koi na koi Ullu ki neend mein khalal dal raha tha. Look at that. David Williams, just for you, because you've joined us from Australia. There's an owl in the story who's trying to go to sleep. But there's somebody who's always disturbing the owl's sleep. Now, what happens? Why is there so much noise in and around the owl? You will have to read and find out. Look at the spectacular illustrations in this book, folks. I mean, we just can't stop looking at the stunning folk art in this book. And you know what's lovely about this one? You have it as a regular book, this one published by Ekalavya, priced at 90 rupees. And you also have it as this big book. I mean, these big books, so wondrous for young readers, but they're very wondrous even for very grown-up readers like me. I just love looking at the pages of Soja Ullu. I mean, look at these large, stunning visuals, and just think of the thrill if you're going to share this with a big group of children. I mean, it's just such a special and wonderful book. I'd recommend the big one any day, but I do imagine that there are budgets, but they're not that expensive. This one is at 90 rupees and this one is at 280 rupees, not that expensive at all. Rupa Baliga saying, this book is just gorgeous. Loved reading the bird names in Hindi, so lyrical. Absolutely. It's a spectacular book. And I'm so glad we have the chance to show some books that are published in different languages as well. Arunji, you say reading has an age limit? Never. The simplest of board books are read by all us adults who simply just devour these books with a great deal of pleasure in the hope that we can introduce it to our young readers. Sunila saying that looks so stunning. I'm so glad that you have it in Hindi. In fact, it's not available in English, it's only available in Hindi. And for those of you familiar with the language or wanting to learn it, or have children who are learning it, this is such a beautiful way to bring the theme of birds into a children's book, into a playful rhyme and a children's book. I'm going to continue with two other recommendations. And this is too, such a sweet book. In fact, it's Greystroke's favorite book, and we've added it into our collection because of the number of times he's spoken about it. These two lovely books from Jyotsna Prakashan called Our John and Like All Birds. Now you can see the cover of Our John, written by Veronique van den Abel and illustrated by Emma de Woot. It's a story about, it's a really happy and funny story. It's a group of birds that discover an egg, and they are all looking around it rather closely to see whose egg this could be. It's an egg that they find right in the middle of a field. And I've heard Greystroke telling its story once, and I think it's just utterly delightful. Each one taking a guess and deciding that this is a duck's egg, and then somebody else saying, no, this is, somebody else's egg. And what surprise hatches towards the end of the story. You just have to read it to find out. Our John, the title of the book itself, may be giving you an answer to what's going to come in the book. I could show you the back cover to reveal some mysteries, but I don't want to, because you've got to pick up this charming book from Jyotsna Prakashan, priced at 90 rupees, about a group of birds trying to identify whose egg it is, and who you only have to read it to find out who Our John is. In the same category, another lovely book with birds called Like All Birds, written by Christian Merveille and illustrated by Emma de Woot. It's about a little bird who has who has an identity crisis, right? I mean, that's what I would call it. Like, little bird is worried. He feels his nest is too small. He feels he's too small. He's too bored in his nest, and he thinks his life is just so utterly boring and miserable that he decides he wants to set out and explore the world. And you can see that. And so he comes down his nest and goes off to explore the world. So he says, that's it, I'm done. And I know many parents out there, there may be some resonances with this dialogue. That's it, I'm leaving, and I'm just going to go out and explore the world. And there's a little mouse watching the bird and saying, watch out, don't fall down. And what happens? The bird and the mouse, they go off to explore the world around. And what happens to this little bird? Does he discover that his life is that boring, really? Or does he find out that it's quite okay to be a bird? You've really got to absolutely pick up these two wonderful books from Jyotsna Prakashan. We'd recommend it for readers 5+ year old, 5+ years in age. Both, one priced at 90 rupees, Our John at 90 rupees, and Like All Birds at 80 rupees. Our next set of recommendations also very, it's wonderful. One thing that I've sort of discovered while we were looking through a lot of these bird books is that how many wonderful life lessons are tucked away for all of us adults in these books about birds. I think, and I'm sure, our guest today, when she's talking, will definitely, have something to say about it, that At some point, bird watching has beautiful life lessons tucked away inside. I think for somebody like me who's hugely impatient, this lesson in patience comes only from bird watching. I mean, I think like that, everyone who goes out bird watching, takes their children bird watching, I mean, they may learn to identify birds, they may learn to, classify birds in exciting ways, but I think eventually it transcends that and probably has different kinds of life lessons tucked away for different people. And the next, set of books that we're recommending, two of them really filled with these beautiful life lessons, that come from birds. I can see Avyukt saying, Auntie, I want to share something. We go bird spotting near the lakes on weekends, and we've seen pelicans diving for fish, cormorants, darters. We have a tree outside our balcony, which is home to parakeets, barbets, one warbler, and a squirrel. We also have seen shikras and brahmani kites. My God, look at that. One tree outside your window, Avyukt, one little walk to the lake, and you are familiar with so many, many birds that are there right in your midst. I really, for your sake, looked high and low to see if we could find the children's edition of The Fall of a Sparrow, the illustrated edition. We're going to continue to look, for it. And if we find it, we'll definitely put it up on Funky Rainbow's shelves. I think you will enjoy the fact that Dr. Salim Ali too went everywhere. It's not easy, right? If you have to climb up a mountain, if you have to go, diving under a bush, if you have to walk in the middle of the forest to look at birds, to see them, to identify them, and to ensure that you can sort of document the birds that are in our subcontinent and make them clear to people like us who then go subsequently to see these birds. I'm telling you, that's a book that you'll absolutely enjoy, Avyukt, and we'll do our best to try and source it for you. But till then, I think we would have loved to host maybe this book bazaar from near your lake or under that tree in your balcony. It would be just so lovely to be doing this in the midst of nature. I hope really, next year we can take the bazaar out somewhere. We would absolutely love to do that. We're a traveling children's bookshop, and we would love to host our bazaars in the midst of nature. So, of course, like I said, coming back to life lessons that exist in, when you're in birds, two books that we have: The Little Bird in the Big Mountains by that lovely writer Bulbul Sharma, who's got some other books on birds as well, and illustrated by the very talented Sonali Zohra. What is this? It's a lovely story about Meera, who's going to the market with her mother and her brother Rajesh to buy new shoes. But on the way, Meera rescues an injured bird. And what happens once they rescue the injured bird, you can see that they live in the mountains. And what happens to that bird, this story so beautifully brings alive the sights and sounds of the mountain life, and just the gentle rhythms of a life lived in the midst of nature. Look at our frenetic lives often, right? Like charging to work and, rushing back and dealing with the traffic. But that mountain living and the gentle rhythms of life, in the midst of nature, what a beautiful story it is. And also a story of a little girl, Meera, who rescues an injured bird. I really believe that there are some beautiful lessons tucked away, and not the kind of moralizing, preachy lessons, absolutely, but the kind of life lessons that would make so much of a difference to just simple lessons that make a big difference to us. Sunila saying, I second you, Vidya. It's a beautiful book. Yes, indeed. Just can't access it. We've written even to Oxford, but we can't find the children's edition of, The Fall of a Sparrow. The Fall of a Slimmer version. We're going to keep looking definitely and try and spot this one for sure. Rupa Baliga saying, I love the simple book on a folk tale. I was so happy to see a book on this bird, usually found near streams or rivers near the Himalayas. You're such a bird expert yourself. I remember you picked up a book on the Jujurana, Rupa Baliga. When I looked at that book, that was the first time that I even heard of a bird called the Jujurana. And, we put it up on our website. And just, I think, within a couple of days of putting it up on the website, it was gone. And I was like, okay, who has ordered this one? Of course, it had to be you, Rupa Baliga, who picked up this book on the Jujurana. We really, really love your eye for birds. Piyush Seksarya, you're saying this is one of the most beautifully illustrated books I've seen. Indeed, it is. And I think, the writers and illustrators who present these books with so much beauty, doing a great deal of service to bring children into appreciating nature so much more. Of course, nothing quite like walking out and looking at these things, but at least egging them on to take their noses out of books and go look at trees right outside. The one that we sort of paired with this book is The Mountain That Loved a Bird by Alice McLaren and illustrated by Stephen Aitken. It is a classic. It is just such a classic book. And I mean, it's such a beloved story. And Alice McLaren herself has, shared it in readings, tellings, performances, and puppetry all over the world. It's one of those books that absolutely goes beyond the barriers of language and culture. And it was first published way back, I think, it was first published in 1985, and it says it's been published in a number of languages, with the original illustrations being done by Eric Carle. But Tulika has a fabulous version illustrated by Stephen Aitken, and look at that beauty. Look at the eloquence of that illustration. And what is it? It's a story about a little bird, about a mountain that's made of bare stone. And the mountain is cold and alone until a small bird, comes fluttering near the mountain and absolutely changes the mountain's life. Like I said, so many beautiful life lessons tucked away in the pages of this book. I'm not I'm 100% sure that every reading of this book will reveal a new meaning to you, depending on where you are in your life. You could be a small child, you could be like a teenager, you could be in your early 20s. This book, I'm not surprised that it's gone all over the world. Arun is saying Alice's book is a classic. Indeed, that is absolutely the right word. It is a classic. And we really love Stephen Aitken's illustrations in this book. Rupa Baliga saying, thank you so much for recommending this book. This one has to be in everyone's collection. Sridevi Sridharan saying, well said, Mountain That Loved a Bird is class. It's a classic, amazing illustration and story that just stay with you for life. Absolutely well said. That's why I said, maybe bird watching, and I'm sure people like Piyush who are watching will tell you and will be able to tell you much more convincingly than I can that sometimes such beautiful life lessons. I'm sure bird watching or trying to see an elephant in the wild, there's a lot more to it than actually just spotting that animal. So many other wonderful life lessons tucked away in these things. Please pick up the book, gift it to as many people that you want to gift it to, because it's got to be in every home, in every school. This one meant for 6+ year olds, but it's just timeless, and priced at 175 rupees, published by Tulika. I'm going to recommend a clutch of more books before I go into our new arrivals, and at 5 at 20 offer. Let me just make a couple of recommendations. And of course, before I make those recommendations, thank you, Bharti, for pointing this out to me. We have hundreds of things that I want to say that sometimes I forget about, some of the most important things to be said. Sham, can we put up the Q-Shala poster? We are delighted to partner with Q-Shala, a quizzing company that, does quizzes around Indian children's books. They do a family quiz every Sunday, and there is a quiz coming up tomorrow with the lovely writer illustrator Lavanya Karthik around her new book, The Boys Who Created Malgudi. Is it possible for you to show me a copy of the book, The Boys Who Created Malgudi, R.K. Narayan and R.K. Lakshman? What a charming, lovely little book that just made its way into our shelves. And, she's talking about Narayan, who loved words, and Dudu, who is Lakshman, who loved to draw. This is the story of how two brothers created the immortal town of Malgudi. Now, Q-Shala, to promote books by Indian writers, has started to do quizzes with them, and Funky Rainbow is delighted to be their book partner for this quiz. We will keep you posted. I mean, we're going to put up this post on our social media pages as well. For those of you who love quizzing and who love books, make sure to tune into the Q-Shala quizzes. And they have two. They have one that happens in the morning for slightly older children, and one that happens, these are family quizzes, of course, and ones that have for younger children a little later in the day. I know Lavanya Karthik's quiz is happening, and she's going to be there. She's going to be hosting the quiz. That happens a little later in the day. We'll share the info on our social media pages. Do catch and watch Q-Shala's quiz if you're interested in books and quizzing. Supriya Devrakonda, you ask whether we have dyslexic friendly books too, that is for kids with cognitive disabilities. So we have, occasionally tried to find, those books that are braille friendly books. And we had one in our collection, a while ago. We've also been talking to another organization that works and brings out a few books only. I know there are not that many books for children with cognitive disabilities, but there are books that feature them as protagonists, and not just in a manner to say that, well, so-and-so has a disability or has a certain impairment. They just feature as characters in the book, just like anyone else does. We have a lot of them that deal with children with, autism, children, with other disabilities, hearing impaired children, children who can't see. And we have, if you click on our website, www.funkyrainbow.com, and click on the tab that says Book Buzzaar, you'll find a season 1, season 2, season 3. If you go into each of those seasons, there's an entire showcase of books on, featuring protagonists with different kinds of disabilities. And these are, wonderful books that don't portray them in, any manner of pity. They're just like all of us, essentially. But yes, if you do know of books that, we can get, like tactile books. We do have a few tactile books in our collection as well, but I'm not sure they've been specially created for children, with disabilities. We are constantly looking, and you can be in touch with us on funkyrainbowmail@gmail.com or on our WhatsApp at 99004956665. Please do recommend, books that you think should come into our collection, and we will be glad to try and source them and put it into it, because we believe children must read. Adults must read, children must read, and it doesn't matter where you come from, when what you do, reading, there has to be a book for every child in the country. Preeti Ramchandran saying, yippee, quiz and Malgudi boys, perfect recipe for Sunday. Thanks for sharing, Vidya. So, you're absolutely the right candidate, you and Guhan, to catch this one. Post the bazaar. We will put up the information on our social media pages, and do consider catching Q-Shala's quiz. And remember, Funky Rainbow are their book partners for this quiz. I'm going to continue with a couple of more, recommendations. Supriya Devrakonda, we're very happy to sort of engage with you to try and find you the right books for your reading requirements. So we can share some of the tactile books, some of the touch and feel books that exist in our collection. Do connect with us on 99004 95665 on WhatsApp, and we will definitely try and see if we can find some books for your reading requirements. I'm moving to a next charming book. Prabha Malya has got to be such a delightful illustrator, easily one of our best. And she has this fantastic book called The Alphabet of Animals and Birds. And just look at this gorgeous, gorgeous book, because as you turn the pages of this beautiful, charming ABC book, and it's much, much more than an ABC book, you could meet a memory of elephants. You could meet a cartload of monkeys. You could meet a cohort of zebras, and you could meet a mischief of mice. You obviously get the drift. It's a book introducing children to collective nouns. And Avyuk, you were telling me about cormorants. Do you know what the collective noun for a group of cormorants is? You should just Google it to find it, but even more than Googling it, pick up this book to check out, because it's a gulp of cormorants. Can you imagine the collective noun to describe cormorants is a gulp of cormorants, or a parliament of owls? What a fabulously illustrated book that makes animals and birds incredible fun, alphabets a great deal of fun, and you learn collective nouns as well. And Prabha Malya's gorgeous illustrations, my God, I can't have enough of it. I could look at this one over and over and over again. We'd recommend this for 5-6+ year olds, priced at 295 rupees. There's an author, whose books that we have, absolutely loved. And this writer, Dick King Smith, I mean, we love Dick King Smith's chapter books. They are hilarious mostly, and so charming that we have this one that came onto our shelves called Harry's Mad by Dick King Smith, who, we believe is the master of animal adventures. Now, what happens? Harry in the book inherits a parrot from his American uncle. But this is no ordinary bird. Harry's parrot is full of surprises. And you know what? Those surprises absolutely lead to some hair-raising adventures. Really, why is that? Because this parrot has brains. What a laugh out loud a minute book this one is. Absolutely Dick King Smith. If you've read other books by Dick King Smith, The Sheep Pig, for instance, blends humor and blends love of animals, and makes for such pleasurable reading. We'd recommend this for 7+-year-olds, to read it. It's quite simple, and it's an utterly charming and hilarious story. Harry's Mad by Dick King Smith, priced at 350 rupees. And like I said, all our international books available at a 15% discount on Funky Rainbow. Quickly move to wind up, our book recommendations, but I will do 2-3 before I go off. Two excellent ones next from our collection for young bird watchers. This one, and we introduced you to Bulbul Sharma's book earlier. There's Birds in My Garden and Beyond by Bulbul Sharma, which is this excellent, chapter book on just walking into her garden. I want to show you some pages, and look at that. There's an image that shows you the different parts of a bird's body, and these really lovely illustrations about a big jamun tree in Bulbul Sharma's garden, and a fat cat that dominate this garden, which is in Delhi. But the minute you step into it, there's sparrows and parakeets and sunbirds and doves and just all kinds of birds. The magpie robin who calls loudly, interrupting other birds. The hoopoe, which literally, kind of calls out its own name. This is such a beautiful book. If you don't have this one for Rupa, I think N will certainly love this book very, very much. Filled with glorious illustrations. It really brings Indian birds and giving you a lot of information on the features of different Indian birds. I think we would say children above the ages of 8, or let's say even 7, I mean, especially those kids who are already interested in birds and bird watching, would utterly enjoy this one. Guhan saying, I stepped away a few minutes to chat with a parakeet who has been visiting me the last couple of days near our balcony and always stays for a conversation. Please send us a picture of that, Guhan. We would love to see you having a conversation. And I'm so glad that you stepped away from my conversation to have a conversation with the parakeet that came visiting. So delightful to see young children, 6, 7. Does the parakeet screech like? Oh, well, Sham has a question for you, Guhan, or rather Grey Stroke has a question for you, Guhan. He's like, does the parakeet screech like Vidya? As if I screech, okay? But you've got to give us the responses, Guhan. But I'm so glad you stepped away. And Muthana, who's not here today, but joining us from elsewhere, saying that was from the set that I had kept aside to give away to a school. Bharti has fought with me and taken it out. All dirty politics coming right up to the front of on the Funky Rainbow screen. Well, Bharti, thank God you're on the side of the birds. Muthama, that book will certainly reach the schools. Don't worry about it. That's where the book certainly should be. Another one, which is exactly in the line of this one, Birds in Your Backyard and Beyond by Arti Singh, Montani, and Kastub Shrikant, illustrated by Aniruddha Mukherjee. It's a great book to for young readers who are interested in identifying birds. And I love the character that they have created. It's a little girl called Binny, and you know what she describes herself as. And I think many of you, seeing Guhan and seeing Avyukt and seeing so many of you making posts, she says Binny. We know that Binny is a bird nerd. Okay, and what does this bird nerd do? She whisks you away into the magical world of birds and amazing avian adventures. What does she? She trains you to become a bird sleuth. And that's why we said on our poster, the first thing in bird watching is a pair of binocs. So make sure you get those binocs, grab this book. It's great. It guides you step by step to identify birds, spot them right out of your window. And, this one put together by Red Panda and WWF. Look, that's Binny, the bird nerd, has a lot of spaces for you to activities for you to look at and identify things. And you can just look out of your window and see which birds have these kinds of beaks. This is a lovely book for young readers, for older readers as well, who don't know birds very well. It's a fantastic handbook on identifying our feathered friends. So this one and Bulbul Sharma's books, very much recommended for young people. It's really hard for me to always peg age groups. I'd say 7+, but really you guys are the best judges. Quickly to wrap up, we have another beautiful book called Chip Chirp Hoot, The Sounds of Nature and Other Stories by Vijay Lakshmi Nagaraj and published by Terry. Now, of course, this book is full of sounds from nature. For instance, there's a river that sings in one part of India. You get to the top of a mountain and you hear whispering pines. But in the very same book, where you meet two characters, Kanika and Ashok, from the lush green jungles of Dandeli in Karnataka to chancing upon the Malabar pied hornbill, the hill myna, the magpie robin, and many, many other birds in different parts of India through lovely stories and sounds of nature. Vijay Lakshmi takes you, opens your eyes, or should I say, opens your ears to the sounds of nature that are right around us. It's a lovely book. We'd recommend it for 8+ year olds. And if you feel that your children are interested in it, even when they're younger, you can certainly read it here, because these two kids in the book, Kanika and Ashok, they collect wildflowers, they do rock climbing, there's never a dull moment with them. And they also listen to every beautiful sound that exists in nature. And we do know Vijay is such an avid nature lover herself. It's no wonder that there's this wonderful book published by Terry, that introduces you to the wonders, to different wonders in our own country, and to the sounds of nature. I can see Sunila saying, Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj, yay, how wonderful, all these birds we know. Thank you for this lovely book. It's priced at 185 rupees. And our final set of recommendations, which are books for older kids, we'd say 12 plus, is, there are these excellent, three books. Of course, no Buzzaar on birds would be complete without a book by Ranjit Lal. There's a fantastic book that he has by Scholastic called Birds from My Window, one of the first ones that came out. I'm afraid we don't have it in stock at Funky Rainbow. I wonder if the publisher still has it in print. We have written to them, and if we get it, we will certainly update it on our website. But we are here with three books of fiction. The first one that's written by Ranjit Lal, The Little Ninja Sparrows. And Chiddi and Gauri, the protagonists of the book, the two baby sparrows in the book, they are bullied mercilessly by their elder siblings. Does that ring a familiar bell to some siblings who are watching? And if you're bullying, beware. They are so traumatized that they absolutely are too scared to flap their wings and fly. Now, what happens? There's somebody who comes to their rescue. A kind girl absolutely does come to the rescue of the two little sparrows. But what happens? And once they start to fly, they embark on a fantastic adventure. Because obviously, from being scaredy sparrows, they become ninja sparrows. And you know what? There are two evil Siamese cats as villains in the book. And you know what the names of those cats are? I made a note of it somewhere. Ping Li and Pong La are the two Siamese cats in the book. Man, talk of Ranjit Lal writing stories of animals and birds so gloriously. And sometimes, oftentimes, through his book, you wonder if it's a satire for things that are actually happening in life around you. It's a fabulous read. We'd recommend it for 10+-year-olds, published by Speaking Tiger, priced at 250 rupees. I know, when I say Deepak Dalal, many of you will pipe up and say Feather Tales, and the Feather Tales books by Deepak Dalal, all on birds. We have recommended them over and over again in different bazaars. So we're picking one from the Vikramaditya series, which is a series for older kids, where, it's set in Ladakh, and the cover tells you what adventure Vikram and Aditya embark on. Now, Vikram and Aditya meet a little young boy called Sering when they are, traveling in Leh, Ladakh. And what happens? Sering, there's a mysterious band of, bad guys running behind Sering. Why are they running behind Sering? Vikram and Aditya join Sering. They try to protect him from the bad men. And the cover of the book, which is a black-necked crane, the rare black-necked crane, should give you a clue about what this mystery is all about. What a wonderful book it is. Takes you right to the roof of the world, and introducing you to one of the rare birds that that exist in that landscape. I can see Vijay Lakshmi saying, I remember the sound of the hornbill. In fact, I have a lovely picture with the hornbill taken in Nagaland. You must share that with us, Vijay. And you also say that you loved the session with Ranjit Lal, which Ranjit Lal did with the children in the garrison some years ago. I absolutely remember that one that you set up, Vijay. It's such a pleasure to see your book in the bazaar and you recommending Ranjit's book as well. Sunila says, I believe one can see hornbills in Karnataka. Have you, Vijay? I'm just waiting. And Avyukt saying, Auntie, I'm just reading this book right now, which I picked up last time. So timely. I hope you're enjoying this one about the black-necked crane. And the last one for older readers, also a writer whom we love at Funky Rainbow, Venita Coelho's. There are only limited copies of this book remaining. I think, they're not, the publisher is not bringing them out anymore. And we're hoping Venita will find a new publisher for this series, which is the Animal Intelligence Agency series. But the one that we're focusing on, Dead as a Dodo, is just a fantastic book, because in this book, the mission that the Animal Intelligence Agency, which comprises Bagha, Kela, and Rana. And Bagha is tiger, Kela is a baboon, and Rana is a human being. This human and non-human agency trying to save, what happens in the book, and trust Venita to plot this Bollywood-like thriller around the dodo. Somebody has managed to steal the last specimen of an highly endangered or almost extinct bird. And what happens when they steal it? The dodo is the single most priceless creature on the planet, and that needs to be rescued immediately. What does the Animal Intelligence Agency do? They are trained to save animals, and they're trained to save the world. It's a superb, gripping mystery, if ever there was one. Of course, the dodo is extinct, but in the book, hope springs eternal, and we hope that one day we can see that species come back again. I know it's not an easy possibility, but like I said, hope always springs eternal in fiction. This one we'd recommend for 12 plus year olds, priced at 350 rupees. I'm believing that maybe only Funky Rainbow has 1 or 2 copies of this book left. Those were a clutch of recommendations for you, books of fiction and non-fiction that we have presented on birds. There are a lot more in the bazaar. So click on the tab that says Book Bazaar, go to season 3, click on the link that says birds. So many of them flocking together there, so many birds flocking together there. Pick up those that you would really like to read. You think the ones that your children will enjoy. And I'll quickly just share with you our new arrivals before we invite the guest of the day to join us. Sham, you're going to put up the new arrivals? Okay. Brand new on our bookshelves, a clutch of Indian and Western books. And this one, Don't Hug Doug. I mean, these are new arrivals, so we haven't, read them yet. But this looks really lovely. It's a story about consent, a fun picture book to encourage conversations about consent and setting boundaries. What Jobs Could You Do by Catherine Barr and Anna Gomez. And when we put out this, new arrival on our social media post on Instagram, I just loved it that Catherine Barr wrote back to us saying, how lovely to know that my book is available in an independent bookstore in India. So, of course, we're going to read this instantly about the different kinds of jobs that people do. It looks like a charming, colorful, lovely picture book about the different kinds of jobs that people do. We have Musharraf Ali Faruqi's book illustrated by Michelle Faruqi, and we love Musharraf Ali Faruqi's writing. Having read TikTok and The Master of Time, but this one is Monster Folk Tales from South Asia, and it's possibly what I'm going to be reading this weekend because I just love Musharraf Ali Faruqi's writing. The ever popular Sudhamurthy's latest book up in our collection, The Sage with Two Horns, Unusual Tales from Mythology. We know she's a huge, she has many fans amongst all of you who are watching. So this one is the latest one from prolific writer Sudhamurthy's pen. And the last one in the new arrivals, Writing for My Life, the very best of Ruskin Bond. This is also a wonderful, book that brings together, things from his different writing, like one as Rusty and Friends, then, memories of the life with his father, his love for nature. We have to read this one to see, if there are some unusual and new ones tucked away inside its pages. But it really, I think, brings the very best of Ruskin Bond's writing into one book. These are our 5 new arrivals for the day. And the 5 at 20, we do a 5 at 20 offer every week, 5 books at a 20% discount every week. I'm just quickly going to show you those ones before we say hello to our guest. And this one, the All Together Quilt, written by and illustrated by Lizzie Rockwell, a superb story about Jennifer and her friends who make a wonderful quilt together. It's a great time for a quilt, folks. So, nothing quite like reading a story and perhaps just setting out on making a quilt. These 5 books at a 20% discount. There's Richard Scarry's best word book ever. It's the 50th anniversary edition of this ever popular book by Richard Scarry, of words, different words in different places. Absolutely wonderful for our youngest readers. All these books, again, like I said, up at a 20% discount. There's White Bird, R.J. Palacios' stunning graphic novel that he wrote after Wonder, of course. And we know millions of readers fell in love with Wonder. And there is a character in Wonder called Julian, who is Augie's who's the bully in Augie's classroom. This one tells Julian's story, up at a 20% discount on Funky Rainbow. There's Ewan Colfer's wonderful book, sorry about that, wonderful book Airman, which is for older readers, which is a story of a crime that is, committed of a young boy, of a 14-year-old boy who actually is accused of a crime that he didn't commit, and he was swept away into prison. We know that Colfer is very popular with many young readers, and I think this one, the reason we put it at a 5 at 20 this week is because in the book the young protagonist, 14-year-old Connor, actually has to fly. And I'm not going to tell you why and how he has to fly, but the cover will certainly reveal to you how and why. And of course, this huge hit movie that's been doing the rounds in the movie theaters recently, Dune. I haven't read the book, of course. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, basically, but Dune, I know Frank Herbert's Dune, which is made into this, which is supposed to be this mega motion picture that's been released with the stunning SFX and the works. the book, the novel of the movie, up at a 20% discount on Funky Rainbow. Do check out these offers. Do, connect with us if you want children's books. Do write into us for recommendations. You can connect with us either on email, funkyrainbowmail@gmail.com, or, connect with us on WhatsApp at 99004 95665. Vijay Lakshmi saying, thank you, FR, for bringing my book to the bazaar. My grandkids who are watching were delighted to see it and promptly called me. How very wonderful to hear that, Vijay. We are so thrilled that they are watching the bazaar. A big, giant hug going out to all your grandchildren from all of us at Funky Rainbow. I'm going to just check if the guest of our day is here today. I know many of you are waiting for Tara Gandhi to join us, and we'll bring her up live on screen in just a moment.
Hello.
Good morning. Sorry, 1 second, just 1 second. Sham, is there the echo problem coming up from us? No, are you getting the audio clearly? Okay. All right. It's absolutely a pleasure to have you with us here this morning, Tara Gandhi. I can see many people, especially one of our viewers, Arunji, who used to, be with the Sahyadri school earlier, and, now a huge book champion, saying that he came across your book just yesterday, and voila, we have you as a guest at our bazaar this morning. I was telling him it's probably a little bird that came by and told us that that's exactly what that's exactly what Arunji wanted, was for us to have a conversation with you. So, welcome to our bazaar. And I want to tell our audiences who've been eagerly waiting that Tara is a conservationist and an ornithologist who has had the remarkable experience of doing her master's in zoology, with specializing in field ornithology under Dr. Salim Ali. And I'm like, what? Really? You had a chance to be Dr. Salim Ali's student? What? I mean, for us, reading the various books on Dr. Salim Ali puts him, on that really high exalted pedestal. And I think it's just so wonderful that you had him as your field guide, Tara. And of course, I'm sure inspired by by having such a good teacher in her life, Tara has, worked for biodiversity conservation with several national and international organizations, conducted status studies of wildlife in protected areas in different parts of the country, including the Andaman and Nicobar Islands and Lakshadweep Islands, and documenting the flora and fauna in different cities of India. She's presently the trustee in the Wildlife Trust of India, and she serves on so many committees: the Bombay Natural History Society, she's in the Madras Naturalist Society, and in the Institutional Ethics Committee of the Indian Institute of Technology. It's such an honor to have you here with us this morning, Tara. Thank you for taking time out of your packed schedule to be at a little book bazaar that's promoting books for young readers. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, Vidya. I'm just so delighted to be here. And what lovely names you have: Funky Rainbow and Buzzaar. I think that's just such wonderful catchwords to capture the imagination of children and their parents. It's wonderful, I think, really nice. So
thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. I can see one of our guests, Sunila Kulkarni, saying, Dr. Salim Ali, him and his books, they are my Bible. She's a huge nature lover and hence, considers his books her Bible. I'm going to ask you a clutch of questions, Tara. I mean, tell us really about your work in wildlife and conservation,
Yeah.
and how it was influenced, if and how it was influenced by being Dr. Salim Ali's student. Especially, that you specialized, you did your master's in zoology with a specialization in field ornithology.
Well, it was actually a roller coaster ride, being Dr. Salim Ali's student, I have to admit. And so he, you know, but what I did learn, I mean, I learned a huge amount. It was, I mean, every moment with him was a learning experience, truly. Um, so what you asked me is how it impacted my work, and how it made me, how it influenced my work, and it definitely did. For instance, when I did the surveys, different surveys of, I went to different national parks all over the country, and there I had to, make, it was a documentation program that I had to do. And oh, that is long ago with Dr. Salim Ali when I was doing my research. That's an old photo there. So what I was able to apply to my work was how to be very meticulous, how to be careful, how to, look out for interesting things, and look out for, to be faithful in your documentation. He was very particular about that. He said, don't have preconceived ideas. Now you're going to Andamans, don't have a preconceived idea about that. Or you're going to a place, you have to go there and see for yourself and document faithfully what you see. And I don't, I mean, don't jazz it up, don't put it down, don't do anything, do it absolutely as it is. Now that was very, very important for me. And then in my other jobs that I did, I think, what he did teach me was to be prompt, to try to be efficient, and try to use good language, because language is very, very important for me, for him. I had to send reports to him every now and then when I was doing my research, and those reports would come back with, can you believe it, corrections of punctuation marks. If a comma in
Wow.
the wrong place, I could see his scratching it out, putting it in the right place. And he was so, I mean, forget about the corrections that he made in my actual work, but even that, to that extent, he was particular. Yeah. This photo
Wow.
again was taken just when I finished my thesis, and it was like one of those joyous moments with him. And he was already
Wow.
so old, you can see. He was already 80, he was about 89 or 90 years old when this picture was taken. And
Wow.
he took me on as a student when he was 88. So look at the
Wow.
energy of the man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
really.
inspiration for
What
me.
a what a delightful response, to sort of put your head down and do the work, and I mean, to someone like, me, who's obsessed with words, what a good lesson in punctuation and grammar. It's half your job is well done when you write something well and communicate it correctly. I'm just delighted to know, and that's an anecdote that we didn't know from anywhere else, Tara. I mean, that he was really particular about how you turned in your reports, especially in the way that they were written.
Yeah.
How very lovely. I can see Vijay Lakshmi Nagraj saying, hello, Tara. I'm so happy to be here today and I look forward to listening to you. And Arunji saying, glad to meet you,
Thank you.
though online, ma'am. Hopefully one day in the real world.
I hope
Tell
so.
us, Tara, what was Dr. Salim Ali like as a teacher? Was he an accessible guide or was he a tough taskmaster? Was it intimidating in any way to have none other than the bird man of India as your guide and your mentor?
Indeed, indeed, it was certainly intimidating, and uh, it took I mean, every inch of my determination and to continue. He was extremely strict. He was very, very strict, and he actually, he actually completely dismissed 3 months of work that I did. He made me start off, and I kind of bumbled and fumbled so badly the first 3 months that he came. You see, actually, the problem, the difficulty was he was 88 years old, and he was in Bombay that time, and I was in Madras, Chennai at that time. So it was kind of a correspondence course that he guided me, and it was all through my reports, misspelled and unpunctuated. And he would come occasionally, every few months. He would come and take a look at my study sites and what was doing. So the first time he came was 3 months later, and then he said he completely dismissed the whole thing. So I had to again start from scratch. So that's the kind of that's the kind of particularness that he had. And then
Mhm.
he set me up afterwards in the right place, and then it was smooth sailing. So
Right.
when I did well, there was this wonderful pat on the back, and there was this wonderful words of encouragement. I have got all these letters which he wrote to me. Those days there was no email. I'm talking about
Right.
1988, 83, 84. I mean,
Right.
so many years ago, more than 40 years ago, there was no email. And all was by handwritten letters, typed out letters, and reports also were sent, by regular post. So uh, yeah, so then, so he was sent, his letters be scathing sometimes, absolutely scathing. This work is dilettante, is no use. I mean, you're doing injustice to yourself, you're doing injustice to BNHS, all that. And then another letter when I had really, sort of maybe cried and, made myself, pulled myself up, really, uh, and, got into a determined mode of doing better and following all his instructions carefully, then he would say that I can see that you're doing well now. And what more do you want? What more do you want? I think I must frame that letter somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Such a good, candid revelation that, about him being a tough taskmaster, but also a very appreciative, guide when you did your job well. And I think, is that a picture of, other students
Yeah.
of
No,
Dr. Salim
actually,
Ali?
I'll tell you more about it later on. But this was a visit that we were living in Sri Lanka at that time. Myself and my family were living in Sri Lanka at that time. So he came there, and we took him for a nature walk. So this is
Oh,
some friends and my husband and myself. All of us, we were. He took a picture just in the garden in Sri Lanka,
oh,
and
lovely.
so that was that. Yeah. Two students are homes. Not only me, but all. I mean, I was one of his last students. He had so many students that
Right.
he would really link with us. He would come to our homes. He knew our children. He knew our families. He knew our parents. So he got to know everybody. He would relax with us. It was wonderful.
How lovely, how very lovely, really. So actually, one of the things that I, always sort of wanted to ask, I mean, if somebody says today that they're interested in wildlife and conservation and bird watching, it's perfectly possible to chart, your hobby or even a career, out of it. But at the time that Dr. Salim Ali wanted to become a bird watcher, people must have truly thought he was crazy. How did this odd bird then, so to speak, quote unquote, go on to become one of India's most well regarded ornithologists and, someone who's written our first field guide for birds, the Book of Indian Birds?
Truly, this is really the story of his life. Um, See, he came from a very privileged family. They were well off, and they were very large and very loving family. So they encouraged him in whatever he did, and they supported him. Even his young wife, he got married at the age of 25 or something and his wife must have been even younger. She supported him. His in-laws supported him. So now he really was, when he was very small, he was poor at studies, and he didn't do very well, and so he was sent off to try to do some business, and that of course didn't do well there as well. And he took up some little odd jobs which he got bored with. And but throughout this time, his family supported him. They gave him and his wife place to live, and they looked after him the whole time. And even later in life, also he never had a home of his own, but he lived with his sister, who looked after him till the end of his days. So because of that, and also his own, suddenly he got really fascinated by birds.
Mhm.
And that's a famous story of how he shot this bird, and it had a yellow patch on its neck, which was supposed to be
Right.
a sparrow. And They took it to BNHS for identification, and they found that it was a yellow-throated sparrow. It has a different name now, of course. Chestnut-shouldered petunia is called now. And he says that like a pebble dropped in water, my ripples of my interest broadened. He used these beautiful
Oh,
phrases.
so beautiful.
Yeah, and then he got determined to study ornithology. But in India, he couldn't find any. There was no study for ornithology in India, at that time. I'm talking about say, 20s, late 20s. So he went to Berlin University.
I
There's a,
see.
and he had some very inspirational teachers there. And he learned the actual techniques, bird ringing, how to watch birds in the field, how to document. He really did some serious study there.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, he came back and he didn't have a job. And but he embarked on all these major expeditions, huge expeditions all over the country. And he worked gratis. And again, supported by well-wishers, supported even by the BNHS, which he had a connection with even those days, and by, the royal families. Royal families
Mm-hmm.
also supported him because in Mysore, for instance, he did a survey of Mysore state former uh,
Mm-hmm.
the, uh, Kerala, called Trivandrum, Cochin, Travancore at that time, and
Travancore. Mm-hmm.
the royal family also supported him. So with all this support, he built up this huge corpus of knowledge and documentation. And then when he published this book of Indian birds, that made him famous. That made him,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so famous that even Jawaharlal Nehru and our other national leaders, Indira Gandhi, all read the book, and that made him that set him into the Hall of Fame, I would say, to start with, and then a
Wow.
pile of more books. Um,
Of course.
yes,
So wonderful. So wonderful. Some of these anecdotes that you are sharing, about him and his life. You have actually, Tara, just brought out a book that even Arun pointed out to, called Word for Birds, that showcases the radio broadcasts of Dr. Salim Ali. In
yes,
fact, the book just came out on his birthday, right? It came
yes,
out, you were telling
yeah.
us, on the 12th of
May I show
November.
it to you? May I show it to you?
Yes, of course. And Sham, you can show it up as well, right? We
Yeah,
too, how lovely, how very, very lovely. Congratulations.
thank
We have
you.
ordered the book at Funky
Oh, that's
Rainbow.
it. Okay.
And we will tell our audiences as soon as it comes into our collection. But this is the first and only book to bring these broadcasts together.
Mm.
We know that Dr. Salim Ali was a wonderful storyteller, as he was an ornithologist. Do you think you'd like to read us a short segment from one of the broadcasts? In fact, while we were chatting yesterday, you said that there are some broadcasts in it for children as well, really,
Yes,
right?
there are two or three for children, but
Tell us about the book and read us a small segment, Tara.
well, firstly, I'm embarrassed to say it. My book. It's hardly my book. It's entirely his words, and I put them together. I was lucky to have access to all the scripts of these radio talks, which were stored and digitized at BNHS, Bombay Natural History Society archives and library. They had kept all these, so I had access to them, and I really felt, when I read them, I said, "Gosh, this really needs to be published. This needs to be read by many more people." I mean, I'm enjoying it so much. It should be read by many more people. And I was delighted to see that he had reached out to many different audiences, including two or three for children. And one is actually in Hindustani, which,
Oh,
yes, for children who don't know English. So that was
right.
wonderful. So I'll read out a small piece. I don't think it is from a school broadcast, but it is actually more fun. So I thought I would
Sure,
share it
sure,
here.
sure.
So now he talks about, do birds have a conscience? No, it's a very interesting question. Do they have a conscience? So he's exploring this question. All right. So all right. Um, the question as to whether birds possess a conscience and what is in reality the thing that we call conscience. Okay. Says I noted down the various incidents. He was watching these Baya weaver birds. He was watching a colony of weaver birds, and weaver birds are colony nesters. So a lot of birds come together and they start building these nests together. So he noticed that while the owner of a half built nest was away with a party of fellow builders to procure fresh grass strips from a field of young paddy plants close by, I observed his neighbor, who had stayed behind, surreptitiously hop across to the unattended nest and tug feverishly at two or three of the interwoven strands. Okay. So presently he flew off with the booty to his own structure and proceeded to work them into the fabric of his own nest. So I soon discovered that this was the only laggard in this industrious colony. He seldom flew out with the others to get his own nesting material, and he was in fact a habitual offender. Whether it was the little inner voice or whether it was the memory of some unsavory past experience, I cannot tell. But the pilfering bird certainly showed every evidence of guilt and sheepishness in his actions. Hurried pulls, his furtive glances around, and his hasty departure before the return of the host all evinced plainly that the bird was fully aware that what it was doing is not done. This is an excerpt on a
How
very,
ve-
very
no,
interesting question that do birds have a conscience? I mean, he
how
must
very lovely, really.
have one.
And look at the choice of words. That one was the laggard of the group and stuff
Yes,
like that. Really, right?
absolutely, absolutely. Wonderful language, beautiful language.
We can't wait to get we because lots of adults watch our program on Funky Rainbow. We do order a smattering of books for adults as well when they're choosing books for their children, and we'll let you know as soon as this one comes into Funky Rainbow. I can see Vijay Lakshmi saying, wow, that was just fabulous, that little excerpt from the book. I'm going to ask you, that leading from that question of whether birds have a conscience, I know, like your teacher, you too are an ornithologist, and there's obviously much more to birding than just being able to identify a bird and jot its name down. I know, I've heard many avid bird watchers talk, like say Ranjit Lal, who writes many books for children, but also a great bird watcher in Delhi. They've often said that the commonest of birds have life lessons for all of us. Do you think that's true, Tara? And if that is, could you share some with us?
Mm. Well, it's true that all avid birders want to have this long list as well. They want to have a long checklist. I mean, that you have to say, you have to admit that. And no birder wants to have a small, chota little list, and you want to say that you have seen this bird, you've seen that bird, and that's a great joy as well, of course, and that's an understandable joy. But as you say, it's an even greater joy to actually just watch, just to watch a
Right.
bird, not just not just note it, say that you've seen it, but and go away. But if you just look at it for a while, you see that it has a personality. And if you look
Mm.
at even the commonest birds, if you look at them, they seem to have a particular way of behavior, and it's you know how they look after their young ones. That is
Mhm.
something. That is something that every human should be able to also understand, how one looks after the other. When the parent looks after the young one, and how carefully they guard it. For instance, if you go near a lapwing's nest, how it
Mhm.
the lapwing will pretend it's hurt. It'll have this broken wing syndrome. It'll pretend it's broken its wing, and it'll flap and move away, so that you go away, you are distracted by it, away from the nest. So all these are extraordinary discoveries that you get when you actually just watch. If you'd just seen that lapwing and said, "Oh, okay," and you tick it off and go away, you wouldn't have
Right.
seen this. You wouldn't have noticed this. But if you had been watching it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, you might notice something more. And also, one's always astounded by, again, what Salim Ali has written so much about in this book, is about how different birds build their nests, how
Mhm.
tireless they are. They're tireless. They'll do it from morning to night. How they do that, and then the what kind of, there's so much to learn from their stamina, from their physiology, which we don't know also, which we have to learn which we have, science has yet to discover. How do birds do their migration? How do they store that much
Mm.
energy in their bodies that they can fly
Right.
for days with no food and no rest? So these are all wonderful lessons that as a bird watcher, I mean, if you call me an ornithologist, sure, that you get.
How lovely, how really lovely. Sunila saying this is so fascinating. Listening to these, the habits of birds, conscience, just so amazing, actually. Tell us, what would you do? I mean, most of the people watching our show, they are parents, teachers, librarians who want to introduce, their children to different things in life. So, what would you, tell us adults on what we can do to encourage a love of nature in children? It comes very instinctively to many children, of course. So give us some of your tips, Tara.
Yes, you're so right, because actually children relate to nature very easily. It's not a difficult task to make them interested, because they have this natural curiosity anyway. And so, I mean, I would, for teachers, parents, it's not a very difficult task. It's just a question of diverting their attention towards something that can interest them. That is perhaps, even something very small, like even so look more closely at a leaf, for instance. If you look at the underside of a leaf, you might actually discover that there are butterfly eggs there. Or you might discover, the other day, my grandchild discovered something like some strange looking object on the underside of a leaf, and that turned out to be a hornet's or a wasp's nest, you know. So this kind of thing, or pick up a feather and look at it and say, which bird could this feather have belonged to? And then, from there you take it further and you take it further. So you start with something very small, or you look at, or look at a butterfly, and then you say, do you know that actually it used to be a caterpillar at one time? Or if you can manage to do that, recently we had a wonderful time. Picked up a caterpillar which was growing on an absolutely wild, what we call a weed. And I don't like the word weed, but it was what we call a weed. So
Okay.
plucked the weed and with the caterpillar in it, and put it and kept feeding the caterpillar with the leaves, and it became a pupa and became a butterfly. So it was this magical
Yes.
transformation. So these are little things. These are things that can. And of course, the other thing is, just look out of your window. Look at the sky, and what you see in the sky. You may see, again, dragonflies in the sky. You may see birds in the sky, and then you try to, you know capture this. What is that? And this is a very favorite question of Dr. Salim Ali. He'd say, what is that? He always wanted us to ask questions. So with those questions, you can really excite children and get them into this nature. Of course, if you can take them out on nature walks, that's great if you can do that. And I'm sure, and of course, you promote books, which is very wonderful.
Such lovely responses in there. Arun saying, I'm studying observing birds, and it might be a learning experience on personality as well, based on what you've said. We have somebody who wrote into us from Sparrow Nature, India, saying, Namaskara, Mrs. Gandhi. I recall the beautiful moments you shared with us while you lived in the Raj Bhavan, Kolkata, as the first lady of our state. We fondly remember your interest towards the flora and fauna of West Bengal. That is, did you live in the Raj Bhavan in Kolkata? I mean, that's news to me, but my colleague has just written out that large note of somebody saying that they're enjoying this conversation. Somebody who goes by the name Sparrow Nature India. That's the tag that we can see on Instagram. Is that Bharti? On Instagram, saying that they really recall your time in West
Thank
Bengal. How
you.
very lovely. You've got fans everywhere. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us at this bazaar. It's been a pleasure listening to you, Tara Gandhi, and for opening our eyes to so many facets of Dr. Salim Ali, but also of living and loving nature.
Thank you so much, Vidya. I was delighted to be here, and I wish you all the best for what
Thank
you're
you. Thank you
doing,
so
for what you're doing, and carry on. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you so much. I know you have a very packed day today. You said there were many webinars lined up. Really
Just
appreciate
so happens. Just so happens. Okay. Bye bye. Thank
taking it.
you. Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye. Sunila saying, when I looked out of my window, I saw a Nilkant, such aerobatics in Goralpur. Arunji saying, thank you. That was such an amazing session, FR, and to Tara Gandhi. Sunila also saying, thank you to Tara Gandhi. We're not done yet. We've got, of course, for you, my distant, painful relative coming to regale you with just one or two things before we sign off for the day. You know whom I'm referring to. No Buzzaar is complete without a bit of this distant relative who's a bit of a pain, Kengeri Hanumanta Rao, speaking to you guys and saying something before we sign off for the day. Kengeri, we're all waiting for you.
Namaskara, Namaskara. I am coming from the Kengeri. I am Kengeri Hanumanta Rao. I am retired from the Panchayat. So when I am retired, I am becoming free bird. So when I am becoming free bird, I see book Buzzaar is doing on birds, and birds are flying free. I am also flying free. Then I asked editor Amma, I will come on show and I will ask the questions to my favorite people who are watching. So I am asked the riddles. So when I ask the riddles, you have to answer. Okay, I am editor Amma is watching the computer, and she will give the answer on the screen. And so you are not win any prize. Maybe surprise you will win. Okay. First question I ask. What kind of birds writes letters? I give you 15 seconds to answer the questions. What kind of birds writes letters? Namaskara, Namaskara. People are saying hello even now, but what is what is answer you think? No. Yes. Nobody knows. Oh no, I shall show you answer. The next time you can answer. So, what kind of birds is writes letters? Very easy.
He's given as an answer. Pierce Arya saying
Lovebirds. Very nice answers. But who's writing letters? How they're writing letters? The penguin. Because they have the pen. So penguin is writing letters. They are also lovebirds. Maybe penguin lovebirds. Then question number 2. I am asked.
There's a question for you.
Oh, I see. I'm not seeing what is. I can't read.
I have a question for you. Why are you coloring your hair every day?
Why is it? See, birds are very colorful creatures. So free birds means bluebirds. Bluebirds are free birds. Like that, I'm coloring. So question number 2. Why is flamingo stand on one leg? Why is flamingo standing only on the one leg? So it is, see, like us, so they're also having two legs. But why are standing on one leg? Very tough question I'm asking. Some people not even know it has 2 legs. I am mates. Yes, thank you very much. You're having the brands, no? Like that, then the Vedydrama will say, "Oh, don't be like Kangari. He's having bad brain."
To rest the other leg.
To rest the other leg. Arey. Oh, which Lakshmi Nagaraj madam is saying to rest the other leg. Very correct answer. Exactly right answer. He will fall. if he lifts the other legs, how will he stand? He will fall. Very good answer. Very good answer. Abhiyuk Nair, Zindabad. Very, very champion. Very champion. Then I am asked question number 3. Then you are having cricket team favorites. No, you are all watches the cricket. I don't watch cricket. I don't like the crickets because they are throwing one ball and one fellow is standing there with one stick and beating the balls. Why? I don't like violence. Then I ask you questions. How do birds cheers for their cricket teams? When they are having favorite match and their favorite teams, how they go to cheers? Like cheerleaders doing like this and all. How are they cheers? It is very riddles. You have to think very hardly.
Riddles are ridiculous.
It is not ridiculous. Hey, editor, you keep the mouth shut. You tells me how they are cheers. Yes, your thinkings. What do they do? Okay. They will tweet. Oh, very good answer. They will tweet about it. Very good. But they'll also do one more thing.
One more answer.
Flap their wings and cheers. Yes, that we all are doing just like birds. Very good answers. Very good answers. There is one more answer I will now reveal. And that is they will do by egging them on. They are birds, no? So they will have the eggs. So when they have the eggs, they will egg them on. That is how they are. Right. Okay, one more last question I'll ask. Then, like yourselves, birds also likes the coffee. Coffee. They're drinking coffee. Then what is their favorite coffee? It is very easy question. You have to only think so.
And drink some coffee.
Then you are going to coffee day and all. Starbucks, coffee days. Then you tells me what is favorite coffee of the bats. Very, very, very challenge, no? Yes. What is favorite coffee? Then I am waits. That wait to no answer. You are not drinks coffee. You are all tea.
Lunch.
Or the lunch. I thought they were all teetotalers. Only drinking tea, no coffee. Okay, I shall reveal the answer. It is nest coffee. They are birds, so they likes the nest coffee. Yes, black coffee, blue coffee, what you are saying? It is nest coffee. Free coffee, yes. Because we are all free birds. I am liking this person's very much answer. Yes, so that is all for today. So, namaskara. I will give the dayas back to the editorama now. I shall see you again. Happy bird watching.
I never even knew that my distant, painful relative was such a good punster, right? And Piyush Sexaria, my heart went out to that answer. Love birds. Bapre, there's a romantic, even amongst all the bird watchers of the world. Thank you so much. And Piyush says, happy hair dyeing, Kengeri Hanumantarao. Thank you to everyone who watched us at the bazaar, made it a huge success. I'm just going to call out some names quickly before we sign off for you to go have your Nest Cafe if that's what you want. Piyush Seksaria, Supriya Devrakonda, Preeti Ramchandran, Muthana, Sparrow Nature India, Namita Patel, Minaz, Praveen, T4 Tails, Talking Turtle, Geeta Govindan, Adidev Press, Supriya David, Vaishna, Khushbu, Sinha Pratyaksha, Mitali Legal, Mutamma, Grade Strokes, Annapurna, Arti Muthana Singh, Rosella Stephen, Visma Vasan, Jaydeep Panchal, Anusha Veluswamy, Arvind Karnelian, Reena, Shweta Sharan, Varun Enthu, Abhiram, thank you for making the bazaar such a huge success. Many cheers to Kengeri Hanumantarao, Vijay Lakshmi saying cheers to FR, and of course Mr. Hanumantaya, Avyuk saying too good Kengeri Hanumantarao, love the riddles. I will tell all of them to my friends in school now. Thank you so much for all that love and appreciation. We just say, Arunji saying cheers. Do, check out the books in our bazaar. Look at the tab, Book Bazaar, go to season 3 and, go to the tab that says birds. Lots of books in that collection. Do read them. I mean, do pick them up if you think you'd enjoy reading them or your children will enjoy reading them. We believe no better way for your imagination to take flight than by reading books. We'll see you soon with another bazaar. Till then, happy weekend and happy bird watching. And do share those riddles. I would have to keep Kengeri busy. So if you've got some good riddles as well, please do share them with us. Till next time, bye bye and have a great weekend.